Yeah, hello everybody. Welcome to our fourth episode, the day after Christmas. It's December 26th, 2025. I'm your host, Dr. Jonathan Richter. This is the Immersive Learning Research Network's State of XR and Immersive Learning Scan and Reporting Project official webinar called the Illuminators Forum, where we spotlight advances in the evidence and new things that have been released in the year 2025 in preparation for our collaborative scan and report for the year that'll come out this spring in around March. And with me today, I'm super excited to have Dr. Amany AlKhayat, lecturer, media from Columbia Teachers College. Um, as most of you already know, iLearn is the Illuminators Forum is about shining lights on and of immersive learning for the year 2025 as part of our fourth State of XR and Immersive Learning scanning and reporting effort. So welcome everybody. And just on cue, I have the light shining right on me. I did not do that on purpose. It just happens to be where I am in Missoula, Montana. uh, and I've got some illumination. So we'll go with it. um, so the highlights from 2025 on these immersive technologies and the advancements in immersive learning. This week, we're going to look at the intersection of AI and immersive learning. And my special guest, Amany AlKhayat, is especially valuable for today's discussion. It's this range and integration of her expertise. She's a colleague and friend of mine for a few years now, but Amany brings strong technical grounding in both AI and coding and immersive experiences, alongside a broad sort of systems level understanding of evolving technology, educational technology landscape, from these foundational digital tools, chatbots, and immersive learning environments. Her perspectives converge where technical fluency is paired with learning theory and applied design. And beyond research, Amany works as a consulate, an educator, and a communicator. She has particular depth in teaching and learning English as a second language, and her experience adds an essential human dimension to our conversation, centering language, culture, and access as core considerations in how AI and immersive technologies are designed and deployed for learning. Welcome, Amany. How are you?
Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction. I also teach conversational AI at the university, Media Design University in Germany. And I also taught virtual reality human computer interaction, UX research, and UX design at New York Institute of Technology. And it's been a great journey that helped me do my research in second language learning and understanding design, virtual reality,
Mhm.
also understanding how to design chatbots for learning, and at the same time frame this within pedagogy.
That's right. That's right. We'd love to. I really want to dive into that, and this intersection is such a an increasingly hot space. I mean, as we did the scan around the world, you can see different continents kind of looking at it in different ways. But boy, has this been a particular year, this 2025, for AI enhancing immersive technologies in so many ways. It's pretty incredible. Um, so yeah, just to highlight that Amani's um, uh, expertise is in immersive and AI mediated learning design, in the conversational AI and agent based interaction that supports these kinds of situated learning, and in applying immersive learning into authentic institutional settings, and in particular. One thing that I know Amani's been quite versed in has been in these high stakes environments. Amani, do you want to talk a little bit about what these high stakes learning environments, what does that mean?
So high stakes situations are like job interviews, for example,
Mm,
especially for immigrants and language learners. And so we have a lot of immigrants in the United States who
hmm
come here who are looking for a better life, and they go to community colleges in order to learn English, and they face hardships. Um, so job interviews are high stakes situations in which even native speakers they have anxiety when they go and have a job interview. And part of the job interview is language. So
right?
culture. It's a social situation. And
hmm
so, with a language learner who are just learning the language, maybe they are intermediate level, which means that they understand certain aspects of the language.
hmm
But when it comes to job interviews, it will be more difficult because they have to understand how to talk in certain situations. Many language learners they resort to memorization without really understanding what they need to say. And that's why I try to help my students using generative AI, without even doing my research, on how to understand ways in which they can talk about themselves, which they can relate to their job experience in a way that can be understood and in a way that can make them confidence in the situation.
So you ask them to use Chat GPT or an AI LLM and interact with it in a way that helps them communicate better. Is that right?
Yeah, so this is not, of course, I can simply say that, but it
Yeah.
is actually within a course. It's called English for Specific Purposes.
Uh-huh.
And it is actually, so job interviews is part of the curriculum.
Hmm.
But the problem in the curriculum is that it's prepared by language educators. So I have no idea about engineering, nursing, even cashiers, because some of the students, they're young and they sometimes work as cashiers. I have no idea how they
Mhm.
they would navigate this area in terms of job interviews. And so what I do, and what any language educator would do, is that we follow specific pedagogical framework,
Mhm.
and then we integrate AI within this framework. We give the students like a workshop first, showing them how to use artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
Of course, because they are not they are language learners, so they wouldn't understand how to write prompts. And so I prepare some prompts for them, and then also I teach them how to talk to AI. Because even if we know English very well, we need to understand how to use prompt engineering because it's kind of like speaking with AI in a different way. This
Right.
is how AI understands it. And so there has to be like even if they will use artificial intelligence, but sometimes AI hallucinates. So I also prime them for like the risks of using artificial intelligence. We are using it as a partner that would help us for specific situations. And I also noticed that the majority of students, for one particular question, they actually followed my advice, not AI. They're like, okay, she said it, we're gonna
Yeah,
memorize.
right. I
But
trust the
they
human.
they trusted me, but they also ask AI, how can I say this in my situation? So it's kind of like human in the loop. So it's
hmm
my help. They use AI, but they don't over rely on artificial intelligence. And so I make sure that they use AI in a healthy way.
So there's an AI literacy that kind of comes along with
Yes.
the teaching them to navigate a high stakes job interview that they're really,
Mm.
wow. So kind of putting those together in tandem, they can succeed. Is that right?
Yeah, I actually won an award. I was awarded the AI Curriculum Innovation.
Huh?
And it was also for the same like technique that I used in the classroom using task-based language teaching, doing AI literacy for the students and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And we actually, I was interviewed and they were like, yes, go ahead and
Yeah,
continue doing this. So, yeah.
that's fantastic. What was that award for? What group was that
It
in?
was from Hudson County Community College. It was actually the community college that I was doing my data collection for my research.
Oh.
And so I applied for the grant, and
Mhm.
it's about AI literacy. And I explained, and I would refer back to my dissertation. It's like, this is how I did it, and this is how you. And I really wanted them to attend my. It was actually 2 days after my dissertation defense. I was like, I wish you
Oh.
attended dissertation defense because they really asked similar questions about artificial intelligence and language learning. And I
Yeah.
really enjoyed their questions. I was like, yeah, well, the answer is ready because I did this before, and this is how I managed to assess the students to do this and do that. And so
Yeah.
it was really interesting. The conversation was really interesting.
Wow. Well, let's dive into this a little bit and maybe we can help unpack kind of some of these relationships with the
Mm,
pedagogy, the technology, these high stakes situations, and of course, the psychology or the concerns of the people themselves that are put into these kinds of situations. This is really fascinating, and thank you again for joining us. And we have so much to talk about.
yeah.
Um, but these are just some of the scans that kind of came out this for this topic in our State of XR and Immersive Learning scanning Discord. Our team has found some of the following kinds of results. But before I get into there, just sort of, in 2025 broadly around the world, this that AI really has been impacting sort of the gaming industry as well as the immersive experience industry or platforms in both the design and the development across some pretty significant ways. That these advances in AI are also triggering or signaling advances in the gaming and immersive experience um industry or space. And that's through like multiple levels, both in the world building and developing, sort of what's possible for you to walk through. The scale variation and how responsive environments are has been greatly built up in capacity with AI, as also the development of uh, interactive characters and the creation of avatars has really been sped up. So much more variation and highly customized for behaviors and emotion as well as social interactions have really been just rocketed forward with artificial intelligence augmentation. uh, Narrative systems, so the way that people use text and spoken word, and development of different branching stories has been created so that those can, players and people can um, generatively create scenarios as they go in real time, and just the vast numbers of different kinds of narratives that can be developed. And then also just the content creation themselves from the assets, the dialogue, the animation, and the environmental kinds of details. So AI is changing the industry broadly, kind of in these ways. And this is the card from the 2020 State of XR and Immersive Learning, where 5 years ago we saw this as a trend. So you're just seeing this just really, really, really take off in 2025.
Can
But
I,
specific,
can I, sh-
yeah,
sorry,
yeah. Go
can
ahead.
I share something about the previous slide?
Yeah.
Yeah, so just what fascinates me about AI and immersive applications. Have you used this application? It was like 2 years ago, Meetwall.
Mm-mm. I don't think so.
Yeah, so Meatwall is by In-World AI Niantic, and it was actually an award winner in the immersive the Pollies,
Yeah.
Pollies
Oh,
Award.
maybe I have.
And what fascinates me about generative AI or intelligent characters and avatars and mixed reality, especially mixed reality,
Hmm.
is that first scene understanding. It identifies the scene, your room, and you can actually build fascinating things beyond it. So it's not only generative AI, it's the design itself. It's
Right.
very fascinating, especially in mixed reality. The other thing is that physics, identifying physics. And
Mm,
so you can actually see um, like an avatar in your room who can identify chairs and can sit next to you. And so
right.
this is one of the genius things that I found in artificial intelligence and also virtual or mixed reality is that it's not only like I would say it's not generative AI, it's actually developers behind
Hmm.
artificial intelligence. It's those who created the personas, who developed the story, the scenes and stuff like that, and how they made it like you believe that it's really happening. Uh,
Yeah.
like Convey, for example, it's not only the narrative. It's also the eye gaze, the gestures, how the AI sits. It's these nuances or these details that makes it really fascinating in the
Right.
world of immersive intelligence.
So are you saying that, there's really, it isn't just these things like by themselves, but there's an orchestration of these things
It's an
where,
orchestration. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, no, I think that that's well worth really, really pointing out that you're seeing this real systems level emergence, and as you were saying, like that photogrammetry happening in real time, like in a mixed reality
Mhm.
environment, identification of those objects that are in the space, and then smartly bringing that into context. I mean, it's
Yeah, but also no, it's not photogrammetry. It's actually when you use Meta, for example, Meta Quest, you can identify physical objects in the room, especially when
yeah,
you're using mixed reality.
right,
And then
right.
when there is a character, uh, it will identify this easily because in its programming, it will know that this is a chair, this is a table,
Yep.
and so you would feel like there is an actual person in the room who identify things and can go around the table instead of going through it. And so this genius building blocks in Meta, what actually made it possible for creators to design things that are fascinating. So it's not only the persona, it's actually those details that would make the design like like not only the story but those certain many things like
Mhm.
orchestration of things that would makes it fascinating.
Yeah, all the put overlaying virtual type
Yes.
objects into the mixed reality environment, and you're interacting with them, and it's a contextualized type of
Hmm. Yeah,
interaction,
yeah.
so it all
Yeah.
seems naturally part of this co-constructed sort of place. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's wow, awesome. Um, and then to go even further into this, right? There's this intersection of AI and specifically immersive learning. You're finding these adaptive agents and simulations are responding, like you were just saying, Amani, like the learner behavior, their decisions, and their timing are occurring in real time, and this kind of creates these performance-aware feedback loops where the assessments can shift over time because the environment and the characters and the narrative can adjust to the level or the interactions, the types of decisions that the person makes. And this then overall and the aggregate can give a sense of the readiness or the applied competence that a person has within that simulated set of environment. So you're really starting to see these starting to scale in terms of personalization within these different constraints. That the transparency, the control, and the cost of these things, of course, are variables that have to be brought under rein in order for all this stuff to work. Um, and then further this expanded design space that we're creating interaction and dialogue and role plays and really sense making for people that they can understand within these particular situations kind of goes beyond the scripted experience and becomes this interaction with these AI enabled systems. This is really kind of a big deal in the immersive learning space, right? Where we've been really kind of wanting and thinking about the possibilities of this kind of stuff, and here it is on our doorstep. Um, and you're very familiar with a lot of this space. I know, Manny. Does it seem like we dialed this okay? Is this right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you mentioned scripted, it's actually scripted according to research can be frustrating sometimes for learners.
Absolutely.
Because, and also we know that generative AI can adjust its way of talking to users, like can lower the level, for example. So if you're talking to someone who's not an expert, you can speak in layman terms, for example, and
Mhm.
so people can understand, and then they can. This can resolve communication breakdowns, for example, if they don't understand something. And this is actually thanks to generative AI that we have these features. But at the same time, um, we need to make sure that we understand also that there are limitations to artificial intelligence and there are risks.
That's right. Yep, yep. And that's kind of an ongoing thing. Many efforts to sort of separate some of the dangers and some of the hallucinations or some of the things that are unintended from the value add continues to be a real area for concern and figuring out. Like Ethan Mollick calls it that jaggedness of AI.
Mm.
How do you figure? How do we figure that out? You know.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, that's really cool. So um, one of the things that we're seeing here for 2025 that we'd like to kind of highlight here is the responsiveness that AI allows our learners to have at that moment of action that matters, right? A consequential moment where you're supposed to be doing something. And as you were talking about, like when you're in a high stakes interview for a job, you need to know about engineering or housekeeping or whatever the task environment is, and you need to understand how to conduct yourself in a way that's responsive, to the needs of all the different layers there. There's culture and there's, the things to do in the specific problem solving situation. So AI is turning, what was or what we have in immersive learning spaces where we create a simulation or a scenario that accurately reflects an immersive, a space where the conduct of behavior or good thinking needs to occur, and it's turning those simulations into scenarios or those scenarios into these feedback systems where your actions, your what you say, um, changes over time, and that the evidence that of what you do in that thing, in that simulation or scenario, changes, and then you can modify these to specific users and their profile, as you go. So this is again, a big change that we're starting to see. So some of the trend lines that we're looking at are that um, in these high stakes environments is that you can, you know, practice what you need to do that's coming up, like getting a job or like underwater welding or like being in a nuclear reactor, like being in an emergency situation or taking care of something that you don't want to die or be wounded, and getting this AI mediated feedback. Um, this is shifting educational institutions and industries um, to looking at the readiness. And I think this is a big deal in terms of a lot of people feel like AI is taking away a lot of jobs. Um, but by uh, by teaching the specifics of how to apply things within context, that readiness can be reached. I think AI is also helping humans to apply their creativity and their critical thinking skills, and so it's an interesting shift that's happening here. This is a virtual speech. Their dashboard that kind of shows the potential readiness for a learner in a role play. Um, Again, in a way, this is sort of just repackaging what we've already been talking about, but I thought I'd say it another way. Um, 2025 saw a lot of these things applied in, practice. You're seeing Amazon has launched their skill builder, a meeting simulator that you can now, there's a whole bunch of different um, simulators for meetings, whether it's a job interview or a correction where you're appearing before a superior for having um, done something wrong, or just in a performance review. And both the worker as well as the manager can take these courses through AI that Amazon Web Services is offering and upskill. So that's launched recently. Walmart has also launched an artificial intelligence interview coach, and this is aimed specifically at military vets, veterans of military services, for them to take the applied background they have in the military and elevate them into careers where they go beyond just the Walmart associate to become a manager, and it uses AI to accelerate um, that piece. So this is you're seeing both in the Amazon Web Services and in this Walmart example that this you could see that this is possibly the beginning of a trend that's going to accelerate the demand for more transparent scoring in terms of how do you get somebody these competencies, like how is it measuring that, or what is the we want this kind of feedback model in our area. It's very spotted right now, and you're seeing big companies do it, but you can kind of project forward or extrapolate that this will probably start showing up in a lot of other places as it starts to become more commonplace and people start expecting it. But it raises, as these technologies do, as they're solving things in one area, they're also raising serious questions um, and even challenges in other areas. So raising the equity in terms of um, who's getting the interview simulators and how are they designed. Um, they're becoming implicit in these assessment systems, and I think there's going to be a lot of um, issues of inclusion and equity about the design and the delivery and the transparency of the data and who gets the data. So there's a whole nest of different things in there, which, Amany, I know you probably have all kinds of things to discuss on this in the last slide. So what do you think of this particular trend?
Um, yeah, I mean, when it comes to equity, of course, I mean, we know that AI can be biased. And the most important thing when it comes to assessment, which I've seen, I'm not sure about Walmart's way and how they assess it and how they assess, but it actually starts with the designers themselves.
Hmm.
So how they deal with so what kind of learning outcomes they want to to achieve.
Hmm.
The other thing is that what are the skills or the performance outcomes that they want to assess, and what are the limitations of the AI model? Because I've seen this in some um, some tools, AI tools. Some of them are really great, but
Hmm.
like I was doing a workshop. It's called AI Learning Simulation,
Hmm.
and it was also was funded by a grant from my university
Hmm.
as a doctoral candidate at Teachers College. So I got this grant. It's a small grant. So we actually used Wanda AI, and it's a great
Oh,
tool.
yeah.
But in the workshop, like people don't know what's Wanda, and we were trying to experiment with it. And they came up with an idea, and so we tested it at the first workshop. And we also tested the assessment system,
Mhm.
and we found out that we actually needed to give the tool, Wanda, more information so
Mm.
that it can align its assessment. So it wasn't a problem with the tool itself, it was a problem with the giving. It was kind of like very quick design to show them. Like I showed them an example first, and then I was like, okay, so let's do it. Let's do something very quickly just to
Mhm.
see how it works. And we were like, we're going to make mistakes because I'm not an expert in fashion. They are. And so we're just trying to create something that's very quick. And we realized that we had to give it more information so that it can find exactly what we want. And so
Right.
we can't say AI will do it. It's actually what kind of data are we
Yeah.
feeding AI? What kind of assessment framework are we using? And what are we trying to find? So it's always back to humans.
That's really important, isn't it? To like, it rather than just treating it AI like it's a black box,
Mm,
thinking about how like you say, how do we feed it? How do you train the
yes.
AI with the data that it needs in order to make the assessments for the learners?
Mm.
And
And this
then
is
the
actually what,
models. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. That this is actually what Wanda team said. They said that you have to feed it, they have to give it more detailed information
Mhm.
so that you can get the best feedback. And so this is what we were also discussing in the workshop. It was kind of like 3 hour workshop,
Yeah,
starting with an introduction and what kind of personas you want and stuff like that, and then just maybe 10 or 15 minutes just doing something very fast, and then I want it to fail so that we can have more discussions and questions.
yeah,
And then yeah, so it was really interesting that we talked about assessment.
absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah, it's such a reciprocal, feedback loop, and creating that feedback loop, I think is what sort of you're referring to. The AI
Yeah.
works by going into like representing that context, representing how it assesses the learner, and you need to think through that whole process and kind of attend to each of the spots on that feedback loop in order
Mm.
for it to work correctly. Otherwise, it's not doing what you hope it's going to do.
Yes, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, yeah, fun stuff. So, yeah, there's just a few more things here. We noted that a Tensi Real Talk, um, recently has been advancing this agentic AI. That's all the talk now is on agentic AI. Um, for emotionally charged conversations. You know, for our audience, Amany, what would you say that the agentic AI is all about? What is all this buzz about agentic AI?
Agentic AI is, as far as I understand, and I have tested it, it's kind of like your own employee. It's like
Yeah.
it's kind of like Menace, or even now, yeah, like other platforms, they have agentic AI. So you use it, it can do lots of things. And
Hmm.
sometimes I don't like it. I like to do my own work. So, for example, I'm working on a book, and I was like, okay, let's test Manus or this platform. And I was like, okay, so here's the thing. This is not a beginners for virtual reality or artificial intelligence, and this is my idea. And
Hmm.
so just look for some resources and then come back with maybe an outline. I just wanted an outline.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, maybe I didn't write enough, but it gave me something that it could work for beginners. And
Yeah.
uh, and then I was like, okay, I will do it myself. I will write, for example, but it can work well when, for example, I asked it about trends in artificial intelligence in terms of research.
Hmm.
And actually, many people agreed with me. And so, agentic AI can perform. It's not like ChatGPT, for example, when you ask it, when you type a prompt and it gives you a result. but it
Right.
can actually go and do something for you. It can actually create a website. It can create a game. So I actually tried to create something like Beat Saber, which kind of failed, but it created something for me.
Right.
So the thing is that also that depends on the human. So if you know what you want to do and you know exactly how to prompt, it
Yep.
will do it for you. But if you don't, other people will excel because it has nothing to do with AI. It has to do with how you talk to AI and how you get what you want from AI.
Hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like having an employee and giving them very specific instructions about what
Mhm.
it is that you want them to do and how you want them to act on your behalf. And then they go out the door and they go do all those different things and then come back and you then find out how well you gave them instructions, you
Yeah,
know?
that's true. That's true.
Yeah. So, in terms of marking sort of a shift on what does this mean from the, large language models and how that works versus an agent, agentic model that you send out into the world to go act on your behalf in some way and come back, that it's marking this potential shift, in branching logic types of organizations to more responsive social types of interaction. And I think that's kind of under the hood. You're treating soft skills more as behavioral performance under pressure, and this increases sort of the ethical stakes around feedback validity and cultural alignments. But yeah, I guess that I didn't make a whole lot of sense there. The agentic AI and just large language models can do that, changing that responsive social interaction. I think both of them can, but yeah, you're seeing that largely. Sorry, I was focusing on the agentic AI at the top of this headline, and then it doesn't didn't shift to the bottom of the slide there. But yeah, there's a few others that are adding to the this ethical feedback and this responsive social interaction. Um, there was again a fairly recent finding or announcement out of the Stanford Accelerator for Learning in terms of how um, AI can help, managers and others to become more empathic leaders, more to understand and help understand uh, what makes their employees tick, and helping their employees to be able to contribute meaningfully by understanding what motivates those employees, or helping them to become self-regulated uh, employees that have, a growth path and a development path, and that as a manager that can be a powerful thing to help make them feel not only valued but sort of aligned with what's going on in the particular organization that you're leading or managing. um, and I think this has some, another sort of bent in terms of like it isn't just performance on behavioral outcomes, it's also AI working on emotional engagement and emotional types of outcomes, and how that kind of in this orchestration, as we were talking about, Amany, how that can be showing up in the workplace. So that was one of the the findings we saw. And then I just put these two powerful companies, these big companies that are in this space, kind of um, on this one slide. The Cornerstone Immerse companion, as well as Body Swaps, doing amazing things, each in their own right. But it's really both of them are worth mentioning and checking out in terms of how they perform. Do you want to talk at all about either one of these companies or anything that we've talked about so far here, Amani?
Yeah, I actually wanted to talk about authenticity
Yeah.
in terms of like we usually build VR environments to replicate real world scenarios.
Hmm.
The importance of virtual reality in this context is actually the freedom to fail. And so if I'm doing scenario-based learning using generative AI and I feel like I'm in like contextualized learning, I'm in a real office. And this is what actually my students said. They said that I practice privately, no
Hmm.
judgment. And
Right.
so you can practice, you can make errors, especially when like sometimes like you mentioned in a previous slide, like it makes people understand empathy. And
Hmm.
sometimes we can make mistakes. We might not understand each other,
Hmm.
and you might say things that would like harm others, but without like knowing that. Like sometimes when people talk about microaggression, sometimes we do things that we don't know that we're hurting others.
Hmm.
So I usually tell my students that it's better to do this in virtual reality, or it's better to make mistakes in VR or even in the classroom, so that when you go
Yeah.
outside, you understand.
Ab-
You can have more
Absolutely.
awareness. So it raises self-awareness about one of the companies that I really love is Body Swaps, because you can swap and then see how these words impact on you. If you
Yeah.
were, it actually reminds me of restorative justice, because this is what they do in certain situations in schools here in New York. They would ask the student, okay, so who was a bully, for example. So if you were in the same situation, what would you do if you were faced by these, like, um, if you were in the same circumstances? And
Yeah.
so this is what I like. It trains people in situations that are risk free, so that when they go outside, they can perform well.
Absolutely. Yeah, back on this slide, when you were talking about that empathy,
Mm,
some people have called VR the empathy machine. Mel Slater's work, like you were saying, if you can take the position, they try everything for these male construction workers who just keep catcalling the women as they come by the work site. Um, and then when they put the VR headsets on the men and have them take a virtual seat and have them get catcalled as a woman as they're walking by the construction site, the empathy that they had was just far more in terms of actually, both their emotional testament as well as
mm.
behaviors on the other side. It's really powerful. Um,
Yeah,
and,
but
and and like you said, that this Stanford accelerator, they were saying that empathic leadership is complex, but you can learn it.
mm,
Like you can
yeah,
become a more empathetic person with practice. And it's these kinds of XR environments that are really like allowing that kind of situated understanding for people to become emotionally grounded like they never could before. So,
yeah, that's true. But some researchers disagree
yeah.
with the idea that VR or XR is the empathy machine. And it is
Yes.
actually some studies failed actually to make people empathize. I don't remember exactly
Mm.
what these are, but I remember like one of the famous applications. It was actually was preaching to the choir, not actually. So the creator wanted people who empathize, who actually understand about empathy, to see what happens to people in this situation. And when the professor was asked, why didn't you do it to others who are against this type of thing? And she said,
Yeah.
well, I'm just preaching to the choir. I'm just showing them what these people face on everyday basis. And so we go back to design. We go back to the objective piloting to see whether, because I might design something that people don't see usefulness behind it, or they might say, well, I think they deserve it. They deserve to be treated this way. So it might actually turn the result the other way, not what it's intended to do. Well, but the thing is that actually, should we depend on virtual reality or gaming to make people empathize? This has always been my question.
Yeah,
Like imagine there was a research paper about I don't want to just mention an app and I might be mistaken, but when people use this virtual reality, they said, well, they deserve it. They didn't do this or that. They didn't work hard. But then, I mean, we as humans, we have to empathize and we have to understand that everybody has a story that we don't know
yeah,
about.
that's right.
And instead of just saying that they deserve it, maybe we can like think of maybe what put them through these situations.
That's right. Yeah, my friend Jorge Baca Costa did some great work in Bogota, Colombia, with and his colleagues with immigrants coming from Venezuela north into Colombia,
Mm,
and people in Colombia donning the headsets and then taking the role. These were generated from real narratives from actual refugees or people that were migrating out of Venezuela, and what it was like for them. And yeah, real interesting. I agree with you that just putting a VR headset on is not going to change somebody's emotional, baseline. Just like, donning the VR headset and going into, the MetaQuest store, you're not necessarily going to learn something, of real meaning. It really depends on the design. It really depends on the out the the construction of it. And there's also a lot of learner variables, the
mm.
person that's actually doing the learning. Um, there's a lot there. So yeah, good stuff. Yeah, thanks. Um, so Price Waterhouse Cooper is also training their junior accountants because they realize that AI is going to be doing a lot of the entry level work for people who would be uh, accountants. The whole profession is changing, so they're helping them in leadership training with AI to become managers. Similarly, you're seeing uh, firefighters and policemen, or police people, and uh, military, and others using AI. Famously, you know, um, it was the Microsoft HoloLens had a giant, multi-billion-dollar um, contract with the United States military, and then that ended. So there's an uneven landscape definitely in these things, but you're starting, this still is being called out kind of as a trend for 2025. Um, and that kind of brings us, to our discussion. Amani, feel free to weigh in here on these. These are just kind of, you know, tossed out here, but and we've got some audience members here who are live with us today as well, and would love for you to type in the chat if you have a question here, or in the Q&A section. But Amani, if you're going from, in these workforce contexts, these highly high stakes or very important situations, and we're going, this rehearsal for these consequential moments, what kinds of changes do we need to design for readiness rather than skill exposure? Like, so much of education, or the teaching, the Frederick Taylor machine of creating factories where we just create the content and expose people to the content, and then they answer a test or a quiz. If that's going away and we're actually preparing people for becoming ready, I'm just curious, as in terms of just an open conversation, um, how do we make that shift? You know,
Yeah,
uh,
well, in terms of interviews, negotiations, or leadership conversations, well, context is key, like contextualization, because in the past, in many research papers, when they use like Alexa or Google Assistant or other rule-based chatbots,
mhm,
contextualization or context was a problem because the designer can't be aware of all the types of situations that a learner would need.
Right.
That's the first thing. The other thing is remembrance, like what AI, if I will remember or not, which we have now. But also we have another problem with artificial intelligence. In some tools, I actually saw one tool in New York
Hmm.
that can get, it's really fantastic. Like I was invited to one of the events to speak there, and I watched a case study about artificial intelligence. It was a role play, and all of us we couldn't differentiate between the human and the AI. So there
The
were
Turing
two
test.
avatars. One is human, one AI. You couldn't, like, many people are asking who was AI? Where's AI? I was
Which
like,
one?
what was
Yeah.
AI? So it was really designed well.
Yeah.
So the one who designed them, so it's actually it's an engine, it's an
Hmm.
AI engine. The person who designed them is an expert.
Hmm.
So they designed them very well. They designed the situations,
Hmm.
and so you engage in a situation that embeds emotional load, time pressure, social risk, and it can mirror the conditions of real consequential moments rather than idealize the practice. And so that's the role of artificial intelligence. But I mean, it depends whether it's going to be decontextualized from, which I actually saw in research. So if you are going to train people without a human, at least there is some kind of learning management system where someone is like trying to handle questions because some of the research papers that we've seen, they actually missed the human connection. So they
Yeah.
wanted a human at least to be in control. Um, what changes? What will we can sometimes we need to control for bias and
Absolutely.
adapted interaction. So some tools are better than others.
Yep.
And so we need to surface this kind of bias and unpredictability because we are training people, and so we need also to control for such unpredictability. Some companies also use scenario-based chatbots without generative AI, and I've also seen. I mean, we don't need to prioritize generative AI every in every design. It depends
No.
on why. What should we use? What are the learner's needs? What are the constraints of the large language model that we are using? Can we
Hmm.
control? So I've seen some researchers who actually used a rule-based model because they have been using it for years, and it's not actually based on machine learning. It's based on artificial intelligence markup model.
Hmm.
And then when it fails to understand the students, it would actually resort to generative AI, ChatGPT, for example. And so they put pedagogy and the learner's needs at the forefront. Okay. They
Yeah.
understand the context. So they are very, very good educators. And so ChatGPT or generative AI jumps in when there is a need. And so for
Yeah.
job interviews, sometimes you might not control this. You might need to do generative AI, and some generative AI tools are better than others. So it depends on your judgment as an educator, what works best, what's available, and so on. So, um, and also you need to make sure that what you design is ready for transfer, for positive transfer. And
Mm.
so you need to make checks like quizzes or formative assessment, for example, in order to understand, and then summative assessment in order to understand that the students met the needs. Okay. Yeah. So I think what changes, um, it depends. It depends on your instructional design model. It depends on your students' needs. So I mean, you can't say what would change. It depends on the subject matter itself.
Right, right. It make yeah, really excellent far-ranging, uh context there. You're really that was an awesome answer. One thing that it also comes to mind is like in terms of the content or the context that you're modeling or you're simulating that you want the learner to learn about or test up on. some situations are more easy to structure because they're more stable or they're more there's fewer variations. It's less dynamic. And other situations are really difficult to simulate because they're very dynamic and there's so many variables. So creating readiness, I mean, it's easier to prepare for something that's predictable than it is to prepare for something that's really highly unpredictable or really complex, obviously. That was one thing that came to mind is in terms of
Yeah.
you know,
So one of the things that you mentioned was about one of the examples of accounting.
huh?
And actually, one of the companies that I know is H&R Block. They
Yeah.
have been using AI even before ChatGPT. And so they have a lot of models and a lot of situations because when you do your tax return or your
Mhm.
taxes, uh, each individual has a, I mean, if it's W-2, that's the that's would be suited for an entry job. Okay.
Right.
So if they are doing that, yeah, if they're doing like replacing individuals with AI, that would be do for this. But there are actually people who have W-2, 1099, and other stuff.
Mhm.
And so I've seen companies where they actually have these database, a huge database in which the accountant can actually use their website so that they can find some advice from artificial intelligence. And that was before ChatGPT. So you can imagine
Yeah,
how generative AI can help now.
absolutely. Yeah, so there's just a whole new world. That's really interesting that H&R Block was doing this before um, LLMs were popular. So yeah, what else do we have here? AI as the rehearsal partner. If we're talking about across these various regions, you're seeing that AI is less of a tutor and more of this interaction, partner in various ways. And I think we've talked about that throughout this last hour, and we're running up on time here, but yeah, there's
Yeah,
so
yeah.
much
I
here.
mean, we can.
Go ahead.
There is actually a question
Yeah.
in the chat box. Dave is asking a question. It's really interesting one because I started collaborating with a non-profit organization.
Hmm.
So the question is, how can we accommodate the even rollout of this
Yeah.
technology and its use cases across disciplines like non-profit community organizations and so on?
Right.
And so I started, so I was invited by a not-for-profit organization to give a course on AI and research. And I asked questions to the founder of this nonprofit organization. I was
Mm.
like, okay, so who are the students? How can we bring artificial intelligence or generative AI into your organization? So what I usually do is do user research.
Mm.
Okay. So
Mhm.
one of the interesting things that I did actually that would support this is there are many students. So I started a student organization at Teachers College as a doctoral candidate when I was in the past, and it's called Intelligent Reality. So it's artificial intelligence and immersive learning. And I interviewed lots of students. Many of them, the majority actually, they want to know more about generative AI, but they are shy, and they're like, we don't know how to navigate artificial intelligence. And so when I started my workshop, it was a small workshop.
Mhm.
I started like asking people questions about artificial intelligence. So we start first with the user research. Okay, user research, understanding and measuring like their prior knowledge about artificial intelligence. What kind of tools you use for what? And then we gradually bring artificial intelligence into the organization environment.
Mm.
So through prior research about TAM, which is technology, it's a very sorry, I can't remember it now, but
Right.
it's technology acceptance model. Technology
Oh,
acceptance
right. Yeah,
model.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So many teachers, for example, if we talk about education, they have sometimes like negative emotions towards technology, or we are not proficient. And even at New York State TESOL, when I did a lot of, I wanted to push virtual reality, show people virtual reality. And
Yeah.
so what I did was actually workshops. So I found out at the beginning that people didn't like VR. So I was like, okay. And they had negative assumptions about VR, by the way, and artificial intelligence. So I was actually talking about chatbots before generative AI, and people would say, it will take our jobs. We don't want to know about it.
Right.
And I was like, well, I
Heard
think
that.
it's better to know about it before it takes our job.
Yeah, right.
And what I did was like, okay, I'm going to give people what they want.
Yep.
You want Zoom workshops? Okay, but I'm gonna infiltrate, or I'm gonna put some VR and AI workshops, okay, for those attending these magnitude of workshops, okay? So it's kind of like serving people the food they want, but then adding some stuff.
Yeah.
Hey, taste this,
It's,
taste that.
it's nutritional. Here's your vitamins. Yeah.
Yes. And I found out that actually teachers, they said, wow, we love the technology. We actually had negative assumptions about virtual reality and
Mhm.
chatbots.
Yep.
And they started gradually asking about our special interest group
Mhm.
and so on. Also, what I did in the workshop was something really interesting, is that I pretended that I'm gonna have four chatbots in my AI powered learning simulation who are gonna help me in my workshop. And so what I did was I sent user research questions through the registration, and I asked them about how do you like, what kind of challenges do you have in artificial intelligence? How do you like your learning partner, for example, or a study buddy? And on the day of the workshop, after 30 minutes, emails were sent to everyone participated in the workshop with the welcome notes from each chatbot that they chose. Like it's the result of their persona. So I
Yeah.
created user persona and then system personas. And those four systems, they, of course, I sent, like, I scheduled the email. I was like, this
Yeah.
is a welcome note. And then everybody started to I was like, okay, I want everyone who chose this chatbot to meet with each other and discuss about this chatbot. Do you like its persona? And then at the end of the workshop, I gave them balloons, and then I told them to draw the faces of these worships. Imagine that they are humans, or they
Yeah.
imagine that they actually related these chatbots to their teachers. And
Yeah.
we actually found that some chatbots looked similar, identical, same color,
Oh,
same markers, marker color. That was really interesting. So
really?
I turned it into kind of like game-like experience. And
Uh-huh.
so people can navigate artificial intelligence, and how sometimes we can create a persona that would look like someone. So there is a backstory and stuff like that. So there are many ways to bring generative AI into organizations.
Yeah.
But this is through creativity. Like we can be creative. We need to understand first users' needs. This is most important. And
That's
we
right.
need to identify, like, okay, what are the pains and gains, what people want, because we
Yep.
need to give them what they want. At the very beginning, I was very enthusiastic about virtual reality and artificial intelligence, like in 2019. But then I started to question my assumptions. So my enthusiasm was very high, but the educator's enthusiasm was very low. And so I was like, okay, let's go down and try to understand what educators need. Because the problem is you have educators who have negative assumptions about technology, and you have learners who understand technology very well. But the problem is that learners use technology, but not for education.
Right.
Okay. And sometimes we say, okay, we want to use Facebook or virtual reality for education. So this is ed tech.
Yep.
So learners would have assumptions about teachers that they're not techie. Okay,
Yep.
they don't know how to use the technology. And teachers, they were like, yeah, they use it, but I have negative assumptions about it. And so how we have meet together in a common ground where we can use technology purposefully. and with pedagogy in mind.
Right.
I
Well, in
hope I
your
answered your
example,
question, Dave.
I mean, yeah, Dave, I think, so, what do you think? Go ahead and type into chat there if you have a response for Amany. I, uh, I loved how you kind of built it into not just like what do the users want, and meeting them where they are, but you also created sort of collaborative and cultural sorts of experiences that were easy for them to, engage with it and try it out, take it for a spin, kind of a play date or something. Uh,
Yeah, I remember reading research about co-design.
yeah.
So why not ask students about what they wanted? This is what I actually did in my workshop. I
Mhm.
asked them about what they want. I asked them about their assumptions. And when I created a chatbot, it was kind of co-designed. I told them that this is a kind of usability testing. And this would also make you understand how I designed this so that when you design your AI learning powered simulation, you would understand my perspective
Mhm.
and you would test it.
Right.
Okay. So my objective was not just to design cool chatbots, because actually these chatbots gave the same activities to the students, but
Mhm.
each with a certain tone. So the
Right.
tone aligned with the chatbot persona.
Mhm.
And so I had this discussion. So I asked people to gather together who use know me or whatever. I had like four names. Arlo, for example, and I was like, okay, is this the way you like an activity to be like this? So I actually had the same exact activity provided by each chatbot, but the tone was different.
Mhm.
And we started to have a discussion about the tone itself and how it was designed.
Yeah,
Um,
Dave says he appreciates your answer, but there's
hmm.
so many variables, cost, et cetera, beyond just their receptivity to the tech. I'm just suggesting that we're still at the beginning of these transformations to these technologies across uses. That's really true, Dave. Yeah, what do you think about that, Amani?
I'm not sure about cost because maybe you're thinking of specific AI tools. I'm not sure if this is in the US or somewhere else because many people now are using, for example, ChatGPT. So it depends, of course. I mean, cost can be uh, more on the VR side. Yeah, definitely. I was asked this question before, but there are there are VR platforms that you can use that they are free. Frame VR, yes, it's limited, but
Yep.
Frame is free. I mean, you can, and I usually like when some people tell me talk about the cost of virtual reality, I'm like, well, one of the platforms that I feel like they are easy to access.
Yep.
You can easily build something. Yes, it's not yet interactive, like because it will be costly,
Right.
but you can design something to show it. I think Frame VR is good. Yeah, I mean, in the future, cost will be maybe. I mean, Meta has reduced. I mean, they released in the past like Meta Quest 3S. It's $300, and I'm sure in the future there will be less cost because I'm sure that they are working on introducing virtual reality to schools. But I mean, at the end of the day, why do we use VR?
Right.
For what purpose? We might not use it actually. We might not need it. We might need it in certain situations. So it's not just the cost. It's actually more intricate than this. And there's one of the articles that I really love. It's about entangled pedagogy.
Hmm.
And pedagogy, because I always when I design, I think of pedagogy, not technology. So pedagogy for me comes first, and the
Yep.
learner's needs. And so I actually used the frame 3 years ago or maybe four, and I published that in a research paper
Mhm.
with a professor, and it was about empathy.
Mhm.
So I took my students, they were immigrant students, I designed the VR platform. Sorry, I designed a story. It's a novel it's a play by Henrik Ibsen. It's called A Doll's House. And I designed two scenes in Frame VR. And I took my students. We were talking about gender inequality. And all my students are immigrants. And I actually did like a control and a experimental group. The control group, they read it. They read the summary, they watched a video, and then they started writing, but they kind of plagiarized. Whereas the others who went to VR, they saw the Christmas tree, the first scene, and how she
Yep.
was hiding the macaroons in the living room, and pictures of Lark and stuff like that. These were like the words that her husband used to tell her and stuff like that. And we talked about the story. They saw the bank and stuff like that. Male students started to talk about how inequality takes place in their country against women.
Mm.
And they kind of, because the question was about, okay, what do you think of women in the 21st century? And they started like reflecting on their countries and how there's like inequality. And I felt like we published it. We did like a sentiment analysis,
Mhm.
and we published it in an IEEE, and it was really a great finding. Like, I mean, for me, I mean, I
Yeah.
had like 80 students, and all of them they empathized with the narrative itself, although it was 19th century. So I feel like there are some platforms that are, if cost is the problem, so okay, but I feel like it's not. I mean, maybe in the future it will be lowered, but I think there are many challenges.
Oh
Understanding
yeah.
why we use VR, what is the pedagogical framework that we're going to use, learners' needs, and
Yep.
so on.
Policies and
Policy.
governmental oversight and corporate. There's this emerging edge of constant new innovations coming out that's changing the
Yeah.
landscape. It's really absolutely complicated, and a fascinating topic to we could keep continuing. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, so just real
Yes.
quick, I thought I'd just breeze through these. Um, if participation metrics are weakening, we don't. It's really even we don't know whether we don't really have kind of what they say, butts in seats anymore is not an easy way to measure whether somebody was present in a classroom. Yes, they were, of all of my students, they were definitely one of them. They pass. We now need to move more towards performance. And like Dave mentioned there, it's uneven and sort of contested there. And then what kinds of evidence should organizations trust as we mediate feedback and assessment? Another
Mhm.
broad question. Amanda, did you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Or because I actually saw that, and I actually talked about assessment when we
Yeah,
were talking earlier.
that's right.
So I know that it's not about completion or scores. I actually used to complete courses, and I didn't even like learn anything. It's kind of
Yeah,
like it's not a course. It's kind of like compliance.
right.
Okay, so it's kind of
Flick
something
through the
that it's
screens.
forced, yeah, forced on you. So it's like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna do it. But what fascinates me the most is actually scenario-based learning
Hmm.
because it puts you in a context. And before saying that, uh, there has been like an argument about or the idea of competence and performance. So we usually, let's say that there is a rule everybody knows, but sometimes they break. Like when you drive, um, there are certain things that you need to do before going left or right. You
Mhm.
know that, okay?
Yep.
So that's competence, something that you know. But
Yep.
performance is how you apply it, okay? And that's when you put people in a situation or in a simulation, okay?
Yep.
Because what I love about Shapes XR, for example, when you do the training at first, is that they have you do it 3 times, and
Right.
that's how it sticks. And also role play. So having people together in a training, so it's not just, hey, watch these videos, use these scenarios, but the peer feedback and peer learning has proven to be very useful. And so having humans who share stories, about the certain situations, it might also, I mean, impact learning. And so the strongest evidence comes from seeing consistent performance across different scenarios.
Right.
And Also having artificial intelligence feedback, it has to align with human judgment. Because one of the things that I've seen is that sometimes AI can hallucinate. So you need to give it a lot of data so that it might not hallucinate, hopefully. I mean,
Right.
I've seen many platforms where they say it doesn't hallucinate. It does hallucinate. And sometimes,
Yeah.
especially, I mean, in research, um, it would give you the research paper and it gives you a summary. But then once you look into the research paper, for example, it's something else.
Yes.
But it didn't find anything, so
No.
it made up something. So this is the fear, like understanding the limitations of artificial intelligence
Yep.
and not relying over reliance on AI. We have to put this in mind because if we didn't do so, what we are doing, like what evidence do we need if we can't control this?
Right. Right. That's really true. And earlier on in our conversation, when we were talking about the feedback loop, Manny, that I think you really hit on something there too, where you really have to be able to have a good understanding of the domain that you are testing, right? So organizations should have some sort of standard in terms of verisimilitude of a simulation. Like, does the simulation actually represent the the nature and the scope of what it is that the organization's trying to test, or the simulation that you want people to learn, is it the full real simulation? Um,
Yeah, that's true. I was hosting a workshop, and one of the attendees said that AI now gives us a lot of possibilities. I have no idea about coding, and I can code. And I was like, thank you so much for your
yeah.
feedback, but no, you can't. You can check one of our research papers that was published about coding and virtual reality. And we actually tested the coding that resulted on artificial intelligence for Unity as an authoring tool. And we found out that there are lots of differences between human coding and AI coding
Oh
in
yeah.
terms of lines of code and other stuff. You actually used metrics in Unity. And so, yeah, you have to have like a subject matter expert who
Right.
understands. And also, I mean, when it comes to pedagogy and assessment, also you need someone who understands this because AI is just a neutral tool. It depends on what you give it.
That's right. Yeah, putting the human in the middle is such a I use that still, and I don't think that's going to stick around for quite a
Mm,
long time. That having an expert or having a human who understands and can really review what the AI has produced before it's put out there for others just seems like such a smart thing to do, because the jaggedness that we experience with
mm,
AI, um, I'm not sure. I'm, I assume it will eventually go away. It might just be a hallmark of what AI does and always will do. But I mean, it's definitely getting better and better over time, uh,
mm.
the value. But yeah, it's an interesting discussion. Again, we could go on for days. Uh,
Yeah.
this last question is guardrails that are necessary as personalization becomes embedded in workforce systems. So, I mean, as organizations and AI tools, as well as gets more and more data that's very specific to individuals, and starts to note patterns in individual profiles, in order to, yes, help them become better employees, but it's also a data set that uh, about each of these individuals that's becoming embedded into the workforce and into the cloud and into these different systems. So, how do we negotiate between um, sort of iterating forward to make these things better and better, but also potentially increasing the risk for people to have information that could be used in a way that they weren't too happy about, unethically, I guess. So
Yeah, again, human in the loop, but also it will iterate between the designer, the user, and also we need to make sure that, like, if we're talking about, I mean, organizations or wherever, so whether universities or institutions, or industry,
yeah,
I think what we need to do is that it's not only that uh, use personalization, personalization works best when it's guided, audited, and accountable. It's not fully automated or unchecked. So first, we need to guide it as designers. We need also to have like subject matter experts. But the other thing is that, for example, in higher education, where I teach, I need to teach my students AI literacy and
mhm,
how to argue with artificial intelligence. I can't accept something that just an output from artificial intelligence and take it as is. And
right.
I've seen people use AI and generative AI in the past to delegate their tasks, but when they get C's or D's or fail, they start questioning AI, and
Yeah,
then
right.
they say, "Oh, AI failed me."
I put my
And
hand on the hot stove. Darn stove.
yeah, and so, but this is a good sign actually that
Yeah,
also those who judge artificial intelligence, like professors, on the other hand, they are aware that this mainly generative AI. And so this makes students aware that they actually should study and they should question. And at least if they're going to use AI to make them understand, like as a tool to think with, instead of a tool to delegate their tasks, we have to focus as educators, which sometimes I feel like maybe we don't have the time, maybe to do it.
yeah,
But I think most of the time, we focus on lower order thinking skills than higher order thinking skills. And so creativity, questioning, are like questioning authority sometimes. I mean, why not? I mean, we are humans. So we can question each other, and even sometimes, so for example, in my country, I was teaching a study, so no, sorry, valid and invalid arguments. And so one of my students, he criticized the university. And I said, wait, wait. And it's like, and he thought that I'm gonna like tell him, no, you shouldn't criticize the university or something. And he said, oh, of course, you are the professor. You can't like accept that I'm criticizing the university. I'm like, no, 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 your grammar.
yeah.
It's that's your grammar. It's not. I accept that you criticize me and criticize the university. That's fine, because it's a debate. So we were using debate, and so one of the things that I asked ChatGPT, which is really good for to understand personalization, because it depends on what we're teaching, is valid and invalid arguments. And I asked ChatGPT once, do you use fallacies when you handle arguments or when you talk to when people chat with you? And it said, of course, because I am drawn from millions and trillions of texts that were made by people, and people use fallacies. And so we need to understand that the limitations of generative AI comes from us. We are
That's
not,
right.
so AI is not going to do something better than we do. Maybe AI can differentiate,
Yeah,
but it might use certain ways to uh to convince us of something. Yeah, you never know. And so I asked it like what kind of fallacies use. And it's like all types of fallacies. And so this is
right,
really
right.
interesting
It's
to know.
it's
Like,
just using all of the content.
yeah. And sometimes I would talk with AI and then I was like, no, I'm not convinced. Are you trying to fool me? It's like, no, I know because these are the evidence. I was like, yes, you are right. One of the things also that one of the problems of AI is sycophancy
Oh,
because it's
absolutely.
designed to make you addicted to it, to make you like it.
That's
And
right.
this actually makes me really, I don't want to use it because
Agreed.
I don't want someone who would tell me yes, yes all the time. And so
Yeah,
we need to make sure of those hidden problems with artificial intelligence We need to create personas that are, and one of the frameworks that I really love, that was in the past, is how Microsoft created a framework for designing chatbots. It can't be nice all the time. It sometimes it can be serious. It depends on what the user would say.
Yep.
And this is really important. So because we're not designing only for empathy, we're designing to teach students something. So if you say nice, nice, that's great all the time, I mean, students wouldn't even like it. And so there are many things that we can talk about in terms of personalization and what could be some guardrails and tailored coaching and also managing diversity and scenario diversity. I mean, there are a lot of things that we can
Giant.
talk and talk and talk.
We could have a
Yeah.
whole series on this.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But you've raised a lot of really good ones as I was hoping. Thank you so much, Amany. And I always or I have programmed the prompts into all the different LLMs. Some devil's advocate. I want them
Mm,
to rip apart things. And I love to ask itself questions like, show me the design for how it works. How do you work? How sort of the umwelt or the like, what's going on under the hood? Show me the process and where you gather information and the biases, and show me what's going on with your algorithm. Show me how different people are using the algorithms. How do you compare and contrast to other types of AI? And it's just interesting to engage with it that way. And of course, I know that it's still lying and it's still being a sycophant
mm.
and still doing all those things, but it helps me inoculate in a different way. Um,
Yeah, actually, one of the things that I noticed is that also navigating insecurities in terms of the company itself, without like talking about certain companies,
right.
is that I realized that the thinking feature of some platforms, uh, so we think that it's working for us, okay, because it tries to work efficiently, but sometimes it's working to the extent of knowing it's like it's kind of like taking our input and then trying to see whether I should respond to her input honestly or not, or maybe because
Yeah.
it happened to me many times
Yeah.
in the past. I noticed how the response was there, the actual response was there,
Mhm.
but then a glitch happened and then it was deleted.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when I asked it the same question, it gave me a different answer.
Totally.
And now you would ask it now, it uses the thinking feature to think, okay, like diplomatically, how can I answer this question? And so we
Yeah.
need to make sure, in terms of equity, diversity, bias, how AI takes time to respond to our questions
Right.
and what kind of output it will give to us based on what.
That's right. And that leads to a literacy on knowing what's going on with this thing that I'm using as a tool. And
Mhm.
you at least that gives you the shape and the outline and the structure, which then informs how you can use it so much better. Yeah, that's
Yeah, that's true.
that's really that's brilliant. Thank you so much for that advice. I'm gonna use that some more. Like you really added some dimensionality to what I was initially saying. Yeah, thank you.
Look.
So, well, we're well over time, as happens. I think you and I've had some really long, far-ranging conversations. I absolutely love chatting with you. I learn so much all the time. And again, I want to congratulate you again on our webinar uh, for completing your doctorate at Columbia Teachers College, or Teachers College, Columbia University, as it
Yes.
were. Uh, and just yeah, so tickled and happy that you're part of our immersive learning research network community, my friend. And I wanted to, as we always do at the end of our webinars, um, thanking our audience members for coming. And if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you again. Don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to us and all that, so that we can grow our membership. And our conference coming up next year, I can still call it next year because it's not yet January. iLearn 2026 will be online in June of 14th and 15th on our Frame VR campus and in VR. And then at the end of June, 27th through the 30th, we'll be in Athens, Greece. Um, for our 12th international conference of the Immersive Learning Research Network. So there's still a little bit of time for you to put your immersive learning, education, arts, and design, the iLead stream. That those are open, I think, until January 12th, I think is theirs. And so we'd love to have you. And then next Friday, we have a mystery guest. I don't yet have an I'm not ready to quite make the announcement. So please tune in next Friday. Watch LinkedIn, watch our Facebook for the announcement. And we're looking forward to seeing you on another episode of the uh, the Illuminators Forum, our immersive learning weekly scan. So thanks again, Amany, for coming to
Thank you.
uh, be our special guest and for this awesome conversation. And happy holidays and a new year to you.
Yeah, happy holidays and year to you and all the I Learn community members.
Thank you.